Hello, hello, dear viewers and students. Greetings to all. So here today I will start the last lesson of the Flamingo book. Now here you see what we will do. We will start the chapter, the last lesson by Alphonse Daudet, and this story is in your Flamingo book, class 12. All right. So, students, first let me inform you that please subscribe to my this video at Unacademy platform. To subscribe to this video, you have to use code NUPUR10. All right, you have to use the code NUPUR10. This is the referral code. And if you use this referral code, you will get an additional discount on your subscription. Now, just let me remind you that this Unacademy is a very, very informative and useful platform for your studies of classes 11 and 12, and many other courses are also there. So students who are of classes 11 and 12, you please subscribe it and you press the bell button so that whenever I give a lesson, you can get the notification. All right? Okay, students. Now let us start the story. Which story am I going to do? The last lesson, which is perhaps the first lesson of the book, Flamingo book of class 12. What is the name of the lesson? The last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. So it is the last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. So this is a French story. Alphonse Daudet is a French writer. Now we start the lesson, students. The last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. So here you see in this story, the author, who is Alphonse Daudet, what was his lifespan? His lifespan is 1840 to 1897. Now, he was a French novelist and a short story writer. Now, this last lesson, viewers and students, let me inform you that this last lesson was written at the time of the Franco-Prussian War, that was in 1870 to 71. All right. So in this war, Franco-Prussian War, the France was defeated, and therefore France, the two districts, Alsace and Lorraine, were to be incorporated to Germany. It was to be given to Germany. I hope you have seen the map which is given in your book. Now, Alsace and Lorraine is just on the right hand top corner of the map of France. It is in France. That is, it is just at the top corner. So these two districts, Alsace and Lorraine, were to be incorporated to Germany. Now, these two districts. Let's just for a little more information to you children, to students, that Alsace and Lorraine, these two places, these two districts were with Germany till 1919, the First World War. So the territory was now retroceded to France after the First World War. Then Again, it was ceded, means again it was taken back by Germany in the Second World War, that is in 1940. I hope you know the students, you know the years of the First World War and the Second World War. Now, the First World War ended in 1919. Just after 20 years, that is in 1939, the Second World War started. Now, in the Second World War, again in 1940, the districts Alsace and Lorraine were taken up by Germany. Okay, so after that, that was 1940, and after the World War finished, that is in 1945, again Alsace and Lorraine was given back to France. So, in the Second World War, France was Alsace and Lorraine was with Germany. After the Second World War finished in 1945, the districts Alsace and Lorraine was given back to France. So, this is the history. Now, here you see that the last lesson, this story itself, the author, he has Alphonse Daudet, he has given the name The Last Lesson. Now, what is the story about? The last lesson is the story in which there are two main characters, that is M. Hamel, the teacher who used to teach French in the schools in Alsace and Lorraine, and there is Franz, the student who also attended the class. Now, this last lesson was the last lesson of teaching French language. So now you see in this last lesson story, we find that how the two protagonists, what is the meaning of protagonist? The two main characters, M. Hamel, the teacher, and Franz, the little boy, how the two protagonists, that is M. Hamel and Franz, who belong to Alsace and Lorraine, is what are they happening? What happened? They have both of them. They are very sad on that last day when the French lesson would be taught, and it is actually showing their life altering changes coming to them. What changes will come to them? And these things are very well depicted in the story, The Last Lesson. Now, here you see in the chapter, you see just as it starts, I started for the hello students, I can see all of you. All right. All right. Good evening, Anuj. Good evening, Johnny, Rahul, Rhythm, Rajan. All of you, good evening. All right. Okay. Now, here you in this story, you see the story starts. I started for school. Hello, Payal. I can see all of you. How nice of you that you all have come to hear to this lesson. So I started for school very late that morning. Now, who is the narrator? The narrator is Franz. The narrator is the little boy Franz. So he says, I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of scolding, especially because M. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles. Now, you just see what happened on the last lesson of French, which was given on that day. So, on that last lesson day, Franz was late for school. And why? He was dreading, that is, he was afraid to attend the class because he had not done his homework on participle. Students, I hope you know what is participle. Participle is a chapter in English grammar, that is participles, infinites, gerunds. So Franz was asked to learn the participles and go on that day school. So Franz was very afraid to attend the class. And I did not know the first. Shulab, good evening, dear. Sulabh Samrat, good evening. Okay. So what happened? I did not know the first word about them. That is, he was least aware of the participles, and therefore he was dreading to go to school. Therefore, he was afraid to go to school. For a moment, I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. It was so warm and so bright. So the little boy Franz, he was thinking of running away to just bunk classes, not go to class, and go and enjoy the nice weather outside. And how was the weather? It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. So, what did the little boy say? See, he saw that the weather was very attractive. It was a very bright day. Birds were chirping at the edge of the woods. Edge of the woods means just at the starting where the woods started, where the forest area started. And in the open field, what was happening? The Prussian soldiers were drilling. I hope you have understood in the very first part of the story that France, the two districts, Alsace and Lorraine, were to be taken back by uh, Prussians, that is the Germany, and these two districts were to be given to them. So naturally, they had defeated France. In the Franco-Prussian War, France was defeated, and therefore these Prussian soldiers, they were there. And what were they doing? They were drilling there. And France was on the way to school. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles. So the outside world, the birds, the beautiful bright day, the drilling of the Prussians, everything was much more attractive for France than to go to school. And it was all much more tempting. But I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. So Franz had the power, the strong. He was strong enough to control. To resist means to control, and he ran to school, hurried to school. When I passed the town hall, now, town hall is what? The town hall actually is the place where the administration of the town takes place. So, all the administration of the town is done there, all the work of the administration. Now, as Franz was going to school, he was passing the town hall, and there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. So, what did he see? He saw that there was a crowd, that is, a group of people was standing in front of the bulletin board of the town hall. Excuse me. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there, the lost battles, the draft, the orders of commanding officer. And I thought to myself, without stopping, what can be the matter now? So, near the bulletin board at the town hall, all the notices used to come of all the lost battles, all the happenings, everything was posted on the bulletin board or pasted on them. And Franz was thinking that what could be the matter that the crowd was waiting there. Then, as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith watcher, who was there with his apprentice, reading the bulletin, called after me. So, students, you follow here what happened as he was going on the way, he met the blacksmith who was there with his apprentice. Who is an apprentice? Apprentice is a person who gets training under another um, uh, another efficient person or a person who knows any trade. So he was with there was his apprentice also, and reading the bulletin called after me. Now the blacksmith and who was with his apprentice, what was he doing? He was reading the bulletin board in the town hall. So he called after Franz. He said, "Don't go so fast." So Franz was running because he was afraid that the strict teacher, M. Hamill, would be scolding. And of course, another fright was in him that he did not learn the participles. Did not know about the participles. So the blacksmith called after Franz and he said, "Don't go so fast, bub. You'll get to your school in plenty of time." So he said that he will reach his school in plenty of time. Now, this was a hint that there was no hurry for that day. Why? Later on, you will understand, students, that on the last day, what was happening? It was not a very formal class, it was the last lesson of teaching French. And the strict teacher, M. Hamill, was also very good on that day. So, the blacksmith just called him and said that there is plenty of time, don't hurry. So I thought he was making fun of me. Now, little Franz is a small boy. He thought that the blacksmith is making fun of him because he was already delayed to go to school. So here, and reached M. Hamill's little garden. Now, little garden is the school where the school is in the little garden. All out of breath. So, panting, he reached the school of M. Hamill. Usually when school began, so usually on the other days he used to notice that when the school began there was a great bustle, means there used to be a great noise, a lot of noise was there, activity was there, commotion was there, which could be heard out in the street. Now the great bustle and the confusion noise from the school could be heard out from the street, and the opening and closing of desks, of course this is very common, no, opening and closing of the desks also could be heard, lessons repeated in unison, that is lessons repeated all together very loud and with our hands over our ears to understand better. So when lessons are read loudly, then what did they do? They used to put their hands on their ears to understand better that what lesson is being repeated. And the teacher's great ruler. So, what else France could hear on the usual days, on the normal days? That the teacher's great ruler used to rapping on the table. Means rapping means striking on the table. He could hear the teacher's ruler. But now it was all so still. So France could hear that everything was very still, very quiet in the school. Why? Students, that was the last lesson, last day of learning French. I had counted on the commotion to get my desk without being seen. So he used to count it on, means he used to depend on such commotions and he used to slip inside the class and sit quietly there without being seen. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. But everything on that day, what was it? Everything in the school was as quiet as a Sunday morning. I hope students, you all are understanding. Are you there, all of you? Yes? I hope I am not going too fast. Are you understanding, students? Sulabh, Payal, Anuj, Johnny, Rahul, Rhythm. Okay. So that day the school was looking like a Sunday mornings. What happens in a school on Sunday morning? Everything remains very quiet. There is nobody there in the school. So it seemed like that only. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places. So what did Franz see? Through the window, all the classmates were already sitting in the class quietly, and M. Hamill walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler. Now, Franz was very afraid of M. Hamill. He was a very cranky teacher. He was a very ill-tempered teacher. So, he was very afraid of him. So, what did he see? The students were all quietly sitting, and M. Hamill, the teacher, was moving about with the iron ruler. Yes, dear. Pile, you are there. I hope you are understanding. Should I go a little slow? Yes. Okay. Followed it. Now here, a terrible iron ruler under his arm. So what was Hamill doing? He was walking in the class with the iron ruler in his hand. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. So Franz entered the door and he wanted to go before before anyone is there seeing him. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. So on that day, how was he? He was blushing because he was afraid because he was late for school. And of course, he was frightened of whom? Of M. Hamill. But you will find that on that last lesson day, M. Hamill was also a changed personality. He was also a teacher who had changed on that day. His entire uh, appearance was different on that day. But nothing happened. Okay, Payal. But nothing happened. M. Hamill saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz." So it was very unusual. It was very different. It wasn't normal. M. Hamill very sweetly, very kindly, the strict teacher, told Franz that go to your place. And we were we were beginning without you. That is, that last lesson was going to begin without him because he was a little late. Now, students, I have given you the summary what I am teaching. Okay, you will go through all this. Now you see the chapter as I'm explaining. Now here I have given you the map. You just see this side is Alsace and Lorraine. All right, students, this side is the Alsace and Lorraine. Can you see? This is France. This is Germany. All right, Prussia at that time was Germany was its part. All right, students. So that was the first day when when France realized that everything was going to change because the last lesson was of French language. That last lesson day was the last lesson for the French learning. Okay, now you see. I jumped over the bench and sat down on my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap. Now, when he sat and he was little calmed and he was little comfortable there, then he saw that the teacher, M. Hamill, was also wearing a very nice dress. He was wearing a dress which he used to wear on Sundays for the Mass. I hope you know, when people go to church, they wear their dress properly on Sundays and go for the Mass. So, what he was wearing, students just see, he was wearing his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap. All was embroidered that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. So, on which days he used to wear? Only on the inspection, that is when the school inspector used to come, he used to wear special dress, this special dress, and of course on the prize distribution day. Besides the, I hope children you are understanding, all of you are understanding the story. Are you there? Okay. Besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. That is, the whole school appeared very strange. It was very different. It was not like the normal days. And it was very solemn. Solemn means the whole school was looking as if some serious thing is happening. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches. What did he see on the back benches that were always empty? The village people were sitting quietly like ourselves. So, on the back benches, the village people were sitting there. And like our old Hauser with his three-cornered hat. That is, old Hauser was wearing the three-cornered hat. And who else? Who were the others sitting there? The former mayor was there. The former postmaster was there, and several others besides. So many old people were also sitting. The ex-mayor, the postmaster, and some others were all sitting in the last benches to attend that class. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer. Now, Hauser, who was wearing the three-cornered hat, he had brought a old primer. Now, what is a primer? Primer is a elementary book, a basic book. So he had brought a old primer, an elementary book, thumbed at the edges. Thumbed means it was folded at the edges. When a book becomes old, no, it becomes thumbed at the edges. And he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. While I was wondering about it all, M. Hamel mounted on his chair. Mounted, that is, he got up on his chair, and in the same grave means serious tone, and gentle, grave, serious, and gentle tone, which he had used to me. So, the same tone which he had used when Franz was entering late to the class, said, "My children, this is the last lesson." Now, students, you follow this very nicely. "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you." So, why was the whole place so solemn? Such a serious thing was happening. He then said aloud to the students that that was the last lesson he shall be giving him. "I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine." Now, these two persons, M. Hamel, Franz, and the other Hauser and the ex-mayor, they all lived in which place? In the districts Alsace and Lorraine. So, what he said, M. Hamel, the French teacher, said that that day was the last lesson because the orders from Berlin had come that from the next day, German language would be taught in the schools of those Alsace and Lorraine. Now, I hope you have understood why German language, because Alsace and Lorraine were to be incorporated to Germany because France was defeated in the Franco-Prussian War. Is it clear? All right. The news master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. So, what is the last lesson? That was the last lesson of French. I want you to be very attentive. So, M. Hamel said that everyone should be very attentive. What a thunderclap these words were to me. That is, the words appeared like thunder to little Franz. He could not expect such words. That how could a person living in his own country not learn his own mother language, mother tongue, or the mother language of his own country, and has to learn some other foreign language? But this was so because France was defeated in the Franco-Prussian War, and Alsace and Lorraine was to be, these two districts were to be incorporated into Germany. Incorporated means given to Germany. Oh, the wretches, that was what they had put up at the town hall. So now France realized that the wretches, that is the villains, had put all that thing in the town hall. My last French lesson, why I hardly knew how to write. Now France is understanding that he hardly knew how to write. He was a playful boy. He always wanted to enjoy, go after the birds' eggs, and also go on the Saar River. I should never learn anymore. So now he is regretting that he has done a mistake. He did not learn. I must stop there and then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Saar. What is Saar? It's a river in the north side of France. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar, my history of the saints, were old friends now that I could not give up. So little Franz was thinking that all the books about grammar, history, they were no more alien to him, no more a burden for him. They all were looking as if they were great friends. Because what? The patriotic feeling in him came up. That is, he cannot give up his mother tongue because the German was to be taught from the next day. I should never see him again. And M. Hamill too, the idea that he was going away. Why going away? Because that was the French class, but that was the last French class, and from the next class he no more had to teach because German language was to be taught in schools. And again made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. So this made him forget that how strict teacher he was, and he started loving his teacher M. Hamill. Poor man, it was in the honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes. That is the embroidered cap, the frilled shirt, and the green coat. All these fine clothes he had worn for this reason, because he wanted to celebrate the last lesson of teaching French in the school. And I understood why the old men of the village, now he was understanding why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing that their respect for the country that was theirs no more. So the all the old people who all were sitting in the last benches, it was their way to show their gratitude towards M. Hamill, who was a teacher for 40 years. And these people, they actually did not study properly the French language when they were students, and therefore to learn it they came on the last lesson to pay their respect to their language, to their country, that they came to to the school in the class of M. Hamill and attended the class. The respect for the country that was theirs no more. After this, the explanation I have given students, you can read it properly. Now I'll continue. While I was thinking of all this, students, I hope you are understanding all these students. I hope you are listening, dear. Okay. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through? Very loud and clear and without one mistake. But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding on to my desk. So Francis' turn came to recite the homework which was given, but he thought that he could have given everything to know the lesson and recite on that, that is, read or speak aloud. But what happened? He was fumbling. He could not speak. And he stood there holding on his desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. I heard M. Hamill say to me, I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. So M. Hamill told him that he would not scold Franz. He must be feeling bad because he has not done the homework. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, now M. Hamill is giving clarification for not learning. He also says that every day what happens? What do we say? Bah, I have plenty of time. So it is a great lesson. Students, for you also. Annapurna dear, yes? Yes, it is for you also that what? You keep on procrastinating, no? You keep on thinking that, oh my, I have plenty of time in class 12. I will do my subjects every day. Little few more days later, I'll start English. I'll start reading chemistry, physics, all these things. So this is the nature of students. So M. Hamill also tells that what do the students feel? Bah, I have plenty of time. That is, it's procrastination. I'll learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out. Now he's explaining that where they have come out, till what position they have got. Ah, that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. That's the great trouble with Alsace mean. The people of Alsace, what do? They keep on putting things for next day. Now, those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? Now, out there, here, those people, and yet they would be saying, what, who are they? Yeah. And those fellows, who are these fellows? These fellows were the Germans he is referring. That those Germans would tell them that what? You are Frenchmen and you don't know how to speak your own language. But you're not the worst, poor little France. Then he is encouraging France that he is not the worst. Many people are like that. And he gives his mistake also. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. That is, they all had some reason or the other to reproach, means to blame themselves for the situation they are facing, that they all don't know properly to learn and read French. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills to have a little more money. So, what is M. Hamills telling? It is not only the mistakes of the children, but the parents are also to be reproached. The parents also can be blamed that when they should send the children to school, they used to send the children to mills, that is to the workplace, and to earn a little more money. All right. So I have been to blame also, and he is also thinking that M. Hamill is thinking that he should be also blamed. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? So the teacher, M. Hamill, is accepting his mistake also. He says that didn't he also send the students to water the plants in his garden and instead of learning the lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, another mistake he tells to the students, that when he wanted to go for fishing, what did he do? He used to give a holiday to the students. And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? Then, from one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language. Now, after this, M. Hamel said that French was the most beautiful language. He is, of course, what he is doing. He is, of course, thinking good of his own country. Very beautiful language. He's speaking of his own language, that French was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. So, M. Hamel says that the French language was the most beautiful and they should protect their language, they should guard their language, and they should never forget it. Because when a people are enslaved, so he's telling the reason that we should guard it, because when people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they have the key to their prison. So here M. Hamill says that when people are enslaved, enslaved means when they are under someone, when they are slaves under some other rule, when they are bound to some other power, then what is it? They should know their language, and that only will be their key to the prison. That is, in that way, if they know their language, that way only they can make themselves free from the prison. Now, for example, you see, you must have done in your good evening, dear Mohammed Ash Khan. Very good evening. Now, students, I hope you are understanding. I am not very fast. Okay. Now, what I was telling. Now, in our independence movement, freedom movement in India also, what happened? I hope you have done in your history classes that in India also, the Indians, what did they do? They all assembled, they all participated in different kinds of movement, non-cooperation movement, Chauri Chaura movement, so many were there. then the Swaraj movement, then the Swadeshi, when they used to boycott the foreign goods. So in this way, there were so many movements, and of course, there were many authors, poets, writers. They all used to write in their own language, and that language of Indian, what did it help them to do? That way, they got the freedom. So here, M. Hamill is also telling that when the people will know their own language, that will be the key to their prison, to their imprisonment as slaves. That way only they can fight for their own country. By all the French men can come together and they can fight back their own country. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lessons. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. Now, Franz, who is the narrator of the story, he's amazed. Yes, dear Napurna, civil disobedience movement. Very good. I'm just referring to it so that you understand it better. So France was also what? France was also defeated in the Franco-Prussian War. Two districts were going out of their hand. So this feeling had come. This was the last lesson of learning French, and orders from Berlin. Berlin means what? The capital of Germany. Orders from Berlin had come that from the next day in Alsace and Lorraine, French will not be taught, and what will be taught? German language would be taught. I hope you all are following properly this chapter. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. So Franz understood that neither he had attended the class with so much attentiveness, nor M. Hamill had taught with so much patience. So this was the beauty of the last lesson, when the feeling of patriotism had come in them, and such a life altering situation it was that they had to leave their school, and in that school itself German would be taught and French would not be taught anymore. Now students, you can read the summary part. Now you see, it seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew. Who is this poor man? That is the teacher, Hamill, wanted to give all that he knew, wanted to teach everything about French language before going away. Because from the next day, M. Hamill was also not supposed to teach, because he was teaching French and he was a teacher for 40 years. And from the next day, German was to be taught in that school. And to put it all into our heads at one stroke. So M. Hamill was wanting to stuff everything about his learning, teaching in the head of the students. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamill had new copies for us, written in beautiful round hand. So after the grammar lesson, what happened? They had a lesson on writing, and M. Hamill had made small notebook, and on those copies, new copies for us, on those copies, what was written? France, Alsace, means, and they were appearing as if the small notebooks were appearing as flags on the desks, written in a beautiful round hand, France, Alsace, France, Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. So, what was the only sound in the quiet class? The writing with the nibs of the pen on the paper, the scratching of the pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest ones who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? So on the roof, what was happening? There was the pigeons were cooing. pigeons, it's the nature of the pigeons. So they will sit on the corner in the roof and they'll continuously coo, coo. They will go on, gutur, gutur, gutur. They will go on cooing. And little Franz was thinking that will the Germans make them also sing in German? Sorry, in German and not their original way. So this is what is referred here, that one's mother tongue is always very innate. That is, you are inherited. It is inherent in you. You are so fluent in your mother tongue, in your mother language, perhaps, that no one can alter that, isn't it? So he's telling just like the pigeons cannot be changed, the cooing cannot be changed. In the same way, the students, or sorry, the France and the other French people, they would also not change from their own mother tongue into some other foreign language. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamill sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, and as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in the little schoolroom. So what happened? That M. Hamill, what was doing? He's doing. He was actually sitting in his chair quietly, and he was looking at everything as if he would imprint all the things in his mind, picturize everything in his mind, imprint. He would make it permanently print in his mind. And what was it? The class. And in this way, the mm, fancy for 40 years he had been there in the same place. So the teacher, M. Hamill, was for 40 years, he was in the same school teaching for 40 years in his class in front of him, just like that. Only the desks and benches had worn smooth. What was there? The class was the same. Only the desks and the benches were worn, means had become old. The walnut trees in the gardens were taller. That is, in the long span of his teaching, the walnut trees had spread up. It had become taller in that garden. And the hop vine that he had, and what happened? The hop vine which he had in front of him, in front, that he had planted himself, twined about the windows. So the vine, that is the creepers, also twined, that is, it went on creeping in the wind, grew longer and longer. To the roof it went. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. Poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above packing their trunks. So M. Hamill was sitting quietly. I hope students, you all are following there. All of you? Okay. Say yes or no. Yes or no, you say. Okay. So here you see that M. Hamill was actually looking at everything, and his sister, who was upstairs in the room, she was packing the trunks. Trunks, what are trunks? Huge boxes to take the things from there, because had to leave the next day. At school they had to leave. They had to go to some other place because that place was occupied by Germany. Or they must leave the country next day. So you can refer this summary, students. Now, but he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history. First grammar, then um, the history lesson, then of course writing, and then the history lesson. And the babies chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, bu. Now, babies chanted means the students. What are they referred? All the ex-mayor, ex-postman, all that was referred as, they were referred as babies because they did not learn French. So they were learning what they were chanting. They were chanting the vowel sounds, ba, be, bi, bu, bu. That is just a very preliminary chapter of any language. All right, you all also study, no? A, E, I, O, U, vowels. Then the 21 consonants. In the English alphabet, how many are there? 26. There are 5 vowels, 21 consonants. So in the same way, those students, all the students as well as the senior people, those who were sitting at the last benches, they were all learning the basics of the language French. That is ba, be, bi, bo, boo. And down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands spelled the letters with them. You could see that he too was crying. Now Hauser, the old man, he too was crying. And his voice trembled with emotion. And it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. So all the other children, they wanted to laugh as well as cry because it was the parting day for them. It was, they had to leave that school because they will no more be taught French in that school. Ah, how well I remember it, the last lesson. So Franz relates, he says that how well he remembers that last lesson in which so many things happened. The change of M. Hamill as the teacher, how he was a changed personality on that day, how the ex-mayor, ex-postman, Hauser, old Hauser, all were sitting to learn French on that day. The children were all sitting there, and of course the teacher was also regretted that he too had neglected his class by going for fishing and asking the students also to water the plants and make them not attend the classes. Now here you see after that, all at once the church clock struck. So in that emotional uh, moment, the church bell struck. That is, it struck 12. In the church bell, I hope you all have seen, there is a big bell in which strikes 12 at that time. Then the Angelus. Angelus is a prayer. So then the Angelus, it is a devotional prayer. And at the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians, the trumpets means the bugles which were blown by the Prussians, returning from drill could be heard. All right, sounded under our windows. And M. Hamill stood up. That is, it was finishing. The class was finishing. M. Hamill stood up, very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. That is why it mentioned so tall, because he was having a lot of respect for M. Hamill, that he had been teaching for so many years, and he was to leave on the next day, leave that day, and he won't be teaching from the next day. My friend, said he, I. That is, he was so emotional that he could not utter the words. But something choked him. That is, he was choked means he was crying to leave that place. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, what did he do? He wrote as large as he could, Vive la France. So he wrote in a large alphabet, large fonts, Vive la France means long live France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, he made a gesture. Gesture means an action to us with his hand. What is it? What did he say? School is dismissed. That is, school was dismissed on that day. You may go. So, what did he say? That they may go. And Vive la France, what is this? The meaning of this? That is, long live France. So, this is how the last lesson was concluded. I hope students you have understood every word, and for your help I have given you the summary simultaneously. All right, so you all the best for all your chapter, all the learning of all the chapters, and you study very well English subject so that it will complement your results of class 12. Okay, now, once more, let me tell you that you please subscribe the YouTube. Please subscribe this channel, okay? Please subscribe my video at Unacademy platform. Now, there is a lot of attraction in this Unacademy platform. If you use my referral, what is my referral? capital N, U, P, U are all capital 10, then you will get an additional discount in the subscription. And you will be getting a lot of help in all the subjects. You are getting to understand each and everything in at this Unacademy platform. So students, it is your great help that this platform is coming up, and it is the best platform in which you can clear all your doubts with the best educators, and we are always there to help you. And with English, I will be teaching you the whole core English here, that is the question paper, how the question paper comes. The question paper, the reading skills, first is the reading skills 20 marks, then is the writing skill that is of 30 marks, and then you have the literature books, that is Flamingo and Vistas, that is of 30 marks. So for your 80 marks questions, you will be doing every step with me, and everything will be explained properly. In the reading skills, how to do the note making, summary, then in the different kinds of advertisement, notice writing, poster making, so many things you are doing step by step. We do at this in the classes. And then the writing skill is there. You are learning everything there, all the types of the writing skills. And of course, in the Flamingo book, you are doing every chapter. This is perhaps the first chapter. The last lesson is the first chapter of the Flamingo book. And we will be doing each chapter, discussing the question answers, word meanings, MCQs, that is, MCQs are there. Then you have the uh, all the word meanings are there, everything, the small questions, the short questions, the long answers, long question answers. In Vistas also, you are, I am explaining you everything. So in this way, you are, when you are joining this Unacademy, you are learning a lot, not only in English, but in all the other subjects. Your every concept is clear. So once again, I request you that please subscribe to my video at Unacademy platform, and you don't forget to press the bell button. So whenever I'm updating, this will be your first lesson. I'll be updating on many other lessons. I'll be updating the note making, summarizing, all these things. So whenever I'm updating, if you press the bell button, then the notification will be going to you, and you can, of course, view the YouTube also. And there are many special classes also I have done. In the special classes, I have done the figures of speech, I have done note making, I have done how to write the letters, the formal letters. There are so many ways of writing formal, so many types of formal letters which you have to write. And all those are discussed in the special classes. And of course, in the plus classes, you are getting every little thing explained in details. So it is your way of learning. And if you subscribe here, please use this code, my code, NUPUR10. This is the referral code, and you are getting an additional discount on this. Okay, students? All right. Stay well and study well, and of course, learn well and be healthy and safe. Good night.